Okay, what is the best strategy for winning fantasy football week 5? It is to take advantage of the law of the conservation of targets. We go back, we look at key injuries in various passing games. Ideally, teams are going to be going into a shootout game environment, so circle the Packers. We know the Packers, they're going to go face the Rams. The Rams have a decimated secondary. They allowed 175 yards and 3 touchdowns to Juwan Jennings because they've been decimated. They haven't had any draft picks. They lost Aaron Donald. A lot of reasons why this defense is turning over and it's being exploited. So you're going to start all your Packers. You're starting, of course, Jayden Reed. In fact, smart fantasy gamers and experts, they're trading for Jayden Reed. Buy high is a more common tactic than buy low for a lot of fantasy experts. So buy high on Jayden Reed. Pay the iron price. Go pay the iron price for Jayden Reed and thank me later. You could also pay the iron price in free agency to go put a big bid in on Dontavian Wicks. I would rather put a much smaller bid on Bo Melton. Bo Melton has a similar profile to Wicks, a little faster, a little more athletic, a little more productive in college. He also had 3 targets. I know Wicks had 13, but those targets are going to converge. Melton is going to see plenty of snaps and run plenty of routes in week 5. He's a better player than Romeo Doubs. So I like stashing Bo Melton and seeing how he plays. And if he plays an inordinate number of snaps and runs a lot of routes, then you can start starting him as of week 6. So that's a key tactic that you'll see a lot of fantasy experts use this week. If you don't get Wicks, then you get Melton. You put a big bid in on Tucker Kraft as well, because you want to have assets in this passing game facing the Rams this week. So you have both the big shootout game environment where you're starting Love, you're starting all these guys, plus you get the law of the conservation of targets because no Christian Watson due to that high ankle sprain. Buy high on Jayden Reed because he's rostered everywhere, but a lot of savvy fantasy gamers, they do more buying high than they do buying low. And Jayden Reed, given the timing, some fantasy teams are 2-2. Now's the time to go make a move. Getting Jayden Reed at the iron price would be absolutely reasonable. You can also buy high on Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas is facing the Colts. The Colts have been shredded by George Pickens. The week before that, Rome Odunze went over 100 yards with a touchdown. So that's the one thing you can set your watch by. The Colts giving up a lot of fantasy points to perimeter receivers. So go buy high on Brian Thomas. Exploit these shootouts. Cardinals, 49ers. The 49ers defense, not what it was. That's a shootout game environment. Game total of 50.5. Go right back to Brandon Ayuk. Just went right back to Christian Kirk. You go right back to Brandon Ayuk. Yes, he was rusty early. There's been some variance that he's experienced, but all that is going to fall away. And week 5, that's the get right week for Brandon Ayuk versus the Cardinals. Start him. Do not bench him. Just like if Joe Flacco is starting for the Colts, you cannot bench Michael Pittman. In fact, if you find out that Joe Flacco is probably starting and Josh Downs is available, you got to go get Josh Downs and play Josh Downs because it's a completely different offense, much higher pass volume with Joe Flacco back there than with Anthony Richardson. And if you're looking for a sleeper streamer at wide receiver, we go back to monitoring the health and the injury history of wide receivers in recent weeks. Malik Neighbors, serious concussion. It may cost him playing time. He may miss week 5. If it looks like Malik Neighbors is trending toward being inactive for week 5, you have to pick up Wan'Dale Robinson. He's getting double-digit targets even in games when Malik Neighbors plays. So just on target volume alone, no Neighbors. That means you have to stream Wan'Dale Robinson. He's really athletic, and he's a true target earner. And if we're targeting shootouts, Ravens-Bengals has a 51-point total. Isaiah Likely has been dropped. He was picked up after week 1, dropped. Mark Andrews is dust. So I like Isaiah Likely, my favorite streamer, because I'm targeting these high total games. And if you're going to pick up a guy and stash him, a future bell cow, he has an all-purpose skill set. He's the best running back on his team, but he's not the starter yet. He will be the starter by the end of the season. Make sure you're picking up Roschon Johnson and getting him stashed. He's probably already rostered in your league. If he is, go trade for him because DeAndre Swift roared back, right? In week 4, it was a DeAndre Swift get-right game. Now Roschon Johnson suddenly very available across fantasy football. Go get him.